I watched my daughter's small fingers trace circles on the fogged-up car window as rain drummed against the roof. We were parked outside my sister's engagement party at the Ivy House Cafe, and Emma hadn't spoken in 20 minutes. Not since we'd pulled into the parking lot. Not since she'd seen my sister's car already there. The one with the vanity plate that read Bride to Be. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The cafe windows glowed warm and golden through the September drizzle. Inside, I could see silhouettes moving, hear muffled laughter. My phone had been buzzing for the last 10 minutes with texts from my mother asking where we were. Emma was supposed to help pass out the custom cookies shaped like wedding rings. She'd been excited about it all week, had picked out her pink dress herself, the one with the butterflies on the collar. Now she sat perfectly still, her breathing shallow, her eyes fixed on nothing. I reached over and gently touched her shoulder. She flinched. It was small, almost imperceptible, but I felt it like a shock through my entire body. Emma never flinched from me. She was 7 years old and still crawled into my lap during movies, still held my hand crossing parking lots, still kissed my cheek every single morning before school. "Sweetie," I said softly, "we don't have to go in if you don't want to. We can go home. We can get pizza and watch that movie about the talking dogs. Would you like that?" She didn't answer. Her finger kept moving on the glass, around and around, leaving a clear trail through the condensation. I watched the pattern, trying to understand what she was drawing. It looked like nothing. Just circles. Endless, nervous circles. "Emma," I tried again. "Can you tell me what's wrong?" Her hand stopped. For a moment, everything was still except the rain and the distant sound of someone laughing inside the cafe. Then, so quietly I almost didn't hear it, she whispered 3 words that would shatter everything I thought I knew about my family. She hit me. The rain got louder. Or maybe that was just the blood rushing in my ears. I couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. My hand was still on her shoulder and I felt her trembling now. Tiny earthquakes running through her small body. "Who?" I whispered back. "Who hit you, baby?" Emma turned to look at me then. Her eyes were enormous, dark and wet and terrified. She looked like she'd been carrying something too heavy for too long, and had finally set it down only to realize it had been crushing her. "Aunt Becca," she said. And then, as if she needed to make sure I understood, as if she thought maybe I wouldn't believe her, she added, "Last time, when you were in the bathroom, she said I was being annoying. She said I needed to learn to be quiet." My vision tunneled. The warm cafe lights, the rain, the parking lot. Everything narrowed down to my daughter's face and the words she'd just spoken. I thought back to last time. 2 weeks ago. Sunday brunch at my parents' house in Lake Oswego. I'd excused myself to use the restroom, maybe 5 minutes, and when I came back Emma had been sitting at the table coloring very quietly while my sister Rebecca scrolled through wedding Pinterest boards on her phone. Everything had seemed normal. Everything had seemed fine. "Where did she hit you?" I asked, and my voice didn't sound like my voice anymore. It sounded like it was coming from underwater. Emma lifted her hand and touched the side of her head, just above her ear. "Here," she said. Not hard. But it scared me. And she looked really mad. I pulled my daughter into my arms and held her while the rain poured down, and inside the cafe my family laughed and celebrated, and had absolutely no idea that the floor was about to drop out from under everything. I didn't go into that engagement party. I texted my mother that Emma wasn't feeling well, that we needed to head home, that I was sorry. She sent back 3 annoyed emojis and a message saying that Emma needed to learn that the world didn't revolve around her schedule. I didn't respond. I started the car and drove through the rain-slick streets of Portland, past the coffee shops and food carts and bookstores, all the familiar landmarks of the city I'd lived in my entire life, and every single thing looked different now. Emma fell asleep in the back seat before we even got home. I carried her up the stairs to our apartment, her head heavy on my shoulder, her butterfly dress damp from the rain. I tucked her into bed and sat beside her in the dark, listening to her breathe, watching the way the streetlight outside threw shadows across her walls. My sister had hit my daughter. My sister Rebecca, who was getting married in 3 weeks at a vineyard estate that cost more than I made in 6 months. My sister who'd been texting me daily about bridesmaid dress fittings and seating charts and whether the napkins should be ivory or cream. My sister who I'd known for 32 years, who I'd shared a bedroom with growing up, who I'd taught to braid hair and who'd borrowed my clothes without asking and who'd called me crying when her first boyfriend broke her heart. That sister had hit my 7-year-old daughter and told her to be quiet. I sat there until midnight, my mind racing through every interaction, every family gathering, every moment I'd left Emma alone with Rebecca. Had there been signs? Had I missed something? Emma had been quieter lately around my family, had stopped volunteering to help with things, had started asking if she could stay home when I visited my parents. I chalked it up to her being tired, to school starting, to normal kid moods. I'd been wrong. My phone buzzed on Emma's nightstand. A text from my mother. "We missed you tonight." Rebecca was disappointed. She wanted Emma to be part of the toast. "Please don't make this about you, Sarah. This is her time." I stared at that message for a long time. This is her time. As if time was something that could belong to one person. As if my daughter's safety was less important than my sister's engagement party. As if I was the one being difficult. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in my own bed staring at the ceiling, listening to the rain that wouldn't stop, trying to figure out what to do next. In the morning, I called my best friend Nina before the sun came up. She answered on the second ring, her voice thick with sleep. "This better be good, Mitchell," she mumbled. "Nina," I said, and my voice cracked. "I need your help. Something happened." I heard her sit up, suddenly alert. "What's wrong? Is Emma okay?" I told her everything. The car. The whisper. The shaking. The 3 words that had split my world in half. Nina listened without interrupting, and when I finished there was a long silence filled only with the sound of her breathing and the ever-present Portland rain. "What are you going to do?" she finally asked. "I don't know," I admitted. "If I confront Rebecca, she'll deny it. If I tell my parents, they'll say Emma misunderstood or that Rebecca was just trying to discipline her or some other excuse. You know how they are. Rebecca can do no wrong. She's the successful one, the married one, the one who did everything right." Nina made a noise that was half laugh, half snort. "You mean she's the one who didn't get divorced and doesn't work in marketing and doesn't live in an apartment in Hawthorne?" She wasn't wrong. My parents had made their preferences clear over the years in 1,000 small ways. Rebecca's achievements were celebrated with dinner parties. Mine were acknowledged with polite nods. Rebecca's engagement had prompted my mother to start a Pinterest board within hours. My wedding 6 years ago had prompted my mother to ask if we were sure we didn't want to wait. And when Marcus and I divorced 2 years later, the subtext was clear. "We told you so." "I need to protect Emma," I said. "That's the only thing that matters." "Then you know what you have to do," Nina replied. "You document everything. You don't let Emma near Rebecca again. And you definitely don't go to that wedding." The wedding. 3 weeks away. I was supposed to be a bridesmaid. Emma was supposed to be the flower girl. We'd been to 2 fittings already. Emma's little white dress with the sage green sash was hanging in my closet right now, still in its garment bag. I thought about that dress and felt something cold and hard settle in my chest. Maybe I would go to that wedding after all. The next morning was a Saturday. Emma woke up quieter than usual, came into the kitchen where I was making pancakes, and climbed into my lap without a word. She was too big for this. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Really, all long legs and sharp elbows, but I held her anyway, felt her heartbeat against my chest, and promised myself that I would burn the whole world down before I let anyone hurt her again. We spent the day at home. I called in sick to the marketing firm on Monday, something I never did, and kept Emma home from Riverside Elementary. We needed time. We needed space. We needed to exist in our little apartment bubble where no one could reach us and nothing could hurt us, and the rain outside felt protective instead of oppressive. My phone started buzzing Monday afternoon. My mother first, asking why Emma wasn't at school, saying the attendance office had called her as the emergency contact. Then Rebecca, a cheery text about confirming final headcount for the wedding. Then my father, his message brief and annoyed. "Your mother is worried. Call her." I didn't call. I sat on the floor with Emma building an elaborate castle out of blocks, and every time my phone buzzed I turned it face down and kept building. By Tuesday, the messages had gotten more insistent. My mother left a voicemail. "Sarah, this is ridiculous. Whatever is going on, we need to discuss it like adults. You can't just disappear." Rebecca's wedding is in 2.5 weeks and we have things to finalize. Emma needs to come to the final dress fitting on Thursday. Please call me back. I deleted the voicemail. Emma and I went to the coast instead. Cannon Beach was 90 minutes from Portland, a stretch of rocky shoreline and enormous sea stacks that rose out of the Pacific like ancient sentinels. The town was small, touristy, full of saltwater taffy shops and art galleries and cafes that smelled like clam chowder. We'd come here once before, right after the divorce when everything felt broken and I needed somewhere that felt bigger than my problems. It still worked. We checked into a tiny cottage 2 blocks from the beach, the kind with a fireplace and quilts that smelled like cedar and windows that rattled when the wind picked up. Emma ran straight to the beach the moment we arrived, kicking off her shoes, letting the cold water rush over her feet, screaming with delight when the waves came in stronger than expected. I watched her and felt something loosen in my chest. This was my daughter. This laughing, running, fearless little person. And I had almost let someone take that away from her. That night, after fish and chips from a place called the Sandpiper, after hot chocolate with extra marshmallows, after Emma fell asleep in the big bed with her hair still smelling like salt air, I sat on the cottage porch and opened my phone. 17 missed calls. 23 text messages. 4 voicemails. I scrolled through them all, reading the progression from concern to confusion to irritation to anger. My mother's last message, sent an hour ago, said simply, "If you don't respond by tomorrow, we're coming to your apartment." I looked out at the ocean, dark and vast and indifferent to human drama, and made a decision. I opened Instagram, something I rarely used, and posted a photo. It was just Emma's small footprints in the wet sand, the ocean stretching out behind them, the sky that particular gray blue that only exists on the Oregon coast. No caption, no location tag, no explanation. I posted it and watched the screen. Within minutes, the views started climbing. My mother saw it. My father saw it. Rebecca saw it. I knew because Rebecca commented immediately. "Beautiful. Miss you guys. Can't wait to see you Thursday." I didn't respond. I just turned off my phone and went inside and climbed into bed next to my sleeping daughter and listened to the sound of waves crashing in the darkness. We stayed at the beach for 3 days. We collected agates and flew a kite and ate too much ice cream. Emma talked more than she had in weeks, telling me about school and her friends and a boy named Tyler who always took the good crayons. She didn't mention Rebecca. She didn't ask about the wedding. She was just a kid again, unburdened and free. On the 3rd day, I posted another photo. This one was of Emma building a sandcastle, her face scrunched up in concentration, her hands covered in wet sand. Again, no caption. Again, I watched the views climb and the worried comments appear. My mother called 6 times that day. I didn't answer. Nina called once. Picked up. "They're losing their minds," she reported. "Your mom called me asking if I knew where you were. I told her you needed space. She said that was selfish and immature, and that you were ruining Rebecca's wedding experience." "Her wedding experience," I repeated flatly. "Her words, not mine," Nina said. "So what's the plan here, Sarah? You can't hide at the beach forever." "I'm not hiding," I said. "I'm deciding." "Deciding what?" "Whether to let them off easy or make them understand what they've done." Nina was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "You know they won't understand, right? People like that never do. They'll make excuses. They'll say you're overreacting. They'll protect Rebecca because admitting what she did means admitting they failed to see it." "I know," I said. "But I'm done protecting them from the truth." That night, I sat Emma down at the small kitchen table in our cottage. Outside, the sun was setting over the ocean, painting everything gold and pink and temporary. I poured us both apple juice in the cottage's mismatched mugs and tried to figure out how to have a conversation I'd never wanted to have. "Emma," I started, "you know how Aunt Becca is getting married soon?" She nodded, suddenly wary. "And you know how you were going to be the flower girl?" Another nod, smaller this time. "I need you to know something," I said carefully. "What Aunt Becca did to you, hitting you, that was wrong. It was very wrong. And it's not your fault. You didn't do anything to deserve that. You understand?" Emma's eyes filled with tears. "I was being loud," she whispered. "I was asking too many questions about the wedding flowers and she got mad and her voice broke. She grabbed my arm really hard and she hit the side of my head and she said I needed to learn when to shut up." The gold light from the sunset suddenly felt too bright. I reached across the table and took my daughter's hands in mine. They were so small. So impossibly small. Listen to me, I said, and my voice was shaking, but I kept going. You are allowed to ask questions. You are allowed to be excited. You are allowed to be loud and curious in yourself. And nobody, not Aunt Becca, not anyone, has the right to put their hands on you. Do you understand? Nobody. Emma nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. I'm not mad at you, I continued. I'm mad at her. I'm mad at myself for not seeing this sooner. And I'm going to make sure it never happens again. Are we still going to the wedding? Emma asked in a tiny voice. I looked at my daughter, at her tear-stained face and her trembling lip and her eyes that held too much fear for a 7-year-old, and I felt something crystallize inside me. Something cold and clear and absolutely certain. Yes, I said. We're going to the wedding. But things are going to be different now. We drove back to Portland on Thursday morning. My phone had been off for 3 days, and when I finally turned it back on, it practically exploded with notifications. Voicemails, texts, missed calls, social media messages. I ignored all of them and drove straight to my apartment in Hawthorne, helped Emma carry her suitcase upstairs, and then finally, only then, I called my mother. She answered before the first ring finished. Sarah, her voice was sharp with relief and anger. Where have you been? We've been worried sick. Rebecca is beside herself. The dress fitting was today and you just vanished without a word. I had my own fitting to worry about, I said calmly. Emma needed some time away. Time away? Sarah, the wedding is in 2 weeks. 2 weeks? Do you have any idea how stressful this has been for your sister? She's been trying to reach you, trying to make sure everything is perfect, and you just disappear to the beach like nothing matters. I sat down on my couch, looked at Emma playing quietly with her stuffed animals in the corner, and said, I need to talk to you and Dad. In person. Tonight. There was a pause. About what? About Rebecca, I said. And Emma. And something that happened that you need to know about. My mother's voice changed, became defensive. What are you talking about? What happened? Not over the phone, I said. Tonight. Your house. Just you and Dad. Not Rebecca. Sarah, if this is some kind of drama, I don't have time for it right now. We have a wedding tonight, I interrupted. 7 o'clock. I'll be there. I hung up before she could argue. I arrived at my parents' house in Lake Oswego at exactly 7 o'clock. The neighborhood was the kind where every lawn looked professionally maintained, and every driveway held cars that cost more than my annual salary. My parents' house sat at the end of a cul-de-sac, a sprawling craftsman with a wraparound porch and flower boxes that my mother tended every weekend. I'd grown up in this house, had learned to ride a bike on this smooth suburban street, had kissed my first boyfriend under the big oak tree in the front yard. Now, pulling into the driveway, it felt like approaching enemy territory. Emma was with Nina for the evening. I'd asked my friend to keep her overnight, hadn't explained why, but Nina knew me well enough not to push. She just hugged me hard at her doorway and whispered, burn it all down if you have to, before taking Emma's hand and leading her inside to where Nina's own daughter was already setting up a blanket fort in the living room. I sat in my car for a moment, hands on the steering wheel, watching the warm light spill from my parents' windows. I could see my mother moving past the kitchen window, probably cleaning something that didn't need cleaning. My father would be in his study, pretending to read the newspaper but actually avoiding whatever confrontation he sensed coming. They had no idea what I was about to tell them. No idea that their perfect world, their perfect daughter, their perfect wedding plans were built on a foundation that was about to crack wide open. I got out of the car and walked to the front door. It opened before I could knock. My mother stood there in her usual evening uniform of pressed slacks and a cashmere sweater, her hair perfectly styled, her expression hovering somewhere between relief and annoyance. Finally, she said, "Come in. Your father's waiting." The house smelled the way it always did, like vanilla candles and the lavender cleaning spray my mother bought in bulk from some expensive boutique. Everything was immaculate. The hardwood floors gleamed. The throw pillows on the couch were arranged at precise angles. Fresh flowers sat in a crystal vase on the entry table, white roses that probably came from the same florist Rebecca was using for the wedding. My father emerged from his study, still wearing his work clothes minus the tie. Robert Mitchell was a man who'd spent 40 years in middle management and had the personality to match, steady, reliable, conflict-averse to a fault. He gave me a tight smile that didn't reach his eyes. Sarah, he said. Good to see you. Your mother's been worried. I wasn't worried, my mother corrected, closing the door behind me. I was concerned. There's a difference. Worried implies I didn't know where you were. I knew you'd gone to the beach. Your Instagram posts made that clear enough. She said it like an accusation, like posting photos of my own daughter on my own social media was some kind of transgression. Can we sit down, I said. This is going to take a while. We moved into the living room, that formal space that was only used for company and serious conversations. My mother perched on the edge of the cream-colored sofa. My father took his usual chair by the window. I remained standing because sitting felt like submitting to something, like agreeing to play by their rules. So my mother began, folding her hands in her lap. What's this about? What's so urgent that you had to disappear for 3 days and miss Emma's dress fitting and worry everyone half to death? I looked at her, at the way she held herself with such rigid composure, at the way even now in her own home with her own daughter she looked like she was performing for an invisible audience. I thought about all the times I'd stood in this exact room trying to explain something that mattered to me, trying to make her see me, trying to earn even a fraction of the approval she gave Rebecca so easily. Those days were over. Emma told me something, I said. About Rebecca. My mother's expression flickered. What about Rebecca? She told me that Rebecca hit her. The words landed in the room like stones in still water. For a moment nobody moved. My father's newspaper crinkled slightly in his hands. My mother's mouth opened, then closed, then opened again. What? She finally said. 2 weeks ago, I continued, my voice steady. At Sunday brunch here. I went to the bathroom and while I was gone, Rebecca hit Emma on the side of the head. Told her she was being annoying and needed to learn to be quiet. My mother stood up abruptly. That's ridiculous. It's not ridiculous, I said. It happened. Emma told me. And before you say she's making it up or misunderstood, let me be very clear, my daughter doesn't lie about things like this. She was terrified to tell me. She flinched when I touched her shoulder. She's been having nightmares. Sarah, my father said, his voice attempting to be reasonable, diplomatic. Kids sometimes misinterpret things. Maybe Rebecca was just trying to what? I interrupted, turning to face him. To discipline my child? She's not Emma's parent. She has no right to put her hands on my daughter. None. My mother's face had gone pale, but her voice came out sharp as glass. I'm sure there's an explanation. Rebecca would never. She did, I said flatly. And you're going to believe me because I'm telling you the truth and because deep down, you know I wouldn't make this up. This is 2 weeks before her wedding, my mother said. And her voice was rising now, losing that careful composure. 2 weeks, Sarah. You're bringing this up now? Why didn't you say something immediately if you were so concerned? Because I needed to process it, I shot back. Because I needed to make sure Emma was okay. Because I needed to decide what to do about the fact that my sister assaulted my daughter and nobody, not one single person at that brunch, noticed or cared. Assaulted, my mother repeated, and she actually laughed, this sharp, bitter sound. Oh, Sarah. Always so dramatic. So ready to make everything about you. There it was. The word I'd been waiting for. Dramatic. The same word they'd used when I cried too hard at my grandmother's funeral. The same word they'd used when I said I was unhappy in my marriage. The same word they used any time I expressed an emotion they found inconvenient. This isn't about me, I said, and my voice was quiet now, dangerous. This is about Emma. This is about her safety. And if you can't see that, if you're more concerned about Rebecca's wedding than your granddaughter's well-being, then that tells me everything I need to know. My father stood up, attempting to mediate. Let's all just calm down. I'm sure we can discuss this rationally. I'm calm, I said. I'm perfectly calm. I'm also perfectly clear. Rebecca hit my child. I will not allow Emma to be around her unsupervised again. And I think Rebecca owes Emma an apology at the very least. My mother's eyes went wide. An apology? You want Rebecca to apologize to a 7-year-old for something that probably didn't even happen the way Emma says it did? Something inside me went very still and very cold. Get out, my mother said suddenly. If you're going to come into this house and make accusations against your sister, ruin her happiness, cause drama right before the most important day of her life, then you can leave. I stared at her. Patricia Mitchell, my mother, the woman who'd raised me, who'd bandaged my scraped knees and helped me with homework and taught me how to braid hair. She was choosing Rebecca. Again. Always. Fine, I said. I'll leave. But understand this, I'm not coming to the wedding. And neither is Emma. My mother's face went from pale to flushed. You have to come. You're a bridesmaid. Emma's the flower girl. Everything's already paid for. I don't care, I said. I care about my daughter's safety. That's all I care about. You're being selfish, my mother hissed. You're jealous. You've always been jealous of Rebecca. And now you're using Emma as an excuse to ruin her special day. The accusation was so absurd, so disconnected from reality that I actually laughed. You think I'm jealous? Of what? Of a sister who hits children when she's annoyed? Of parents who choose protecting their perfect daughter's image over their granddaughter's safety? Keep it. I don't want any of it. I turned to leave. My father called after me, his voice weak. Sarah, let's not be hasty. Maybe we can all sit down, talk this through properly. I paused at the doorway and looked back at them. My mother standing rigid with fury. My father half risen from his chair, perpetually caught between peace and principle. This room with its perfect furniture, and its perfect flowers and its perfect lie of a happy family. There's nothing to talk through, I said. You've made your choice. I've made mine. I walked out, got in my car, drove away from that house and that neighborhood and that version of my family that had never really existed anyway. My phone started ringing before I'd even reached the highway. I didn't answer. It rang and rang and rang, my mother's name flashing on the screen over and over like an accusation, like a demand, like the same thing it had always been, a reminder that I was supposed to fall in line, be quiet, not make waves. I turned the phone off and drove through the rainy Portland night back to Nina's house, where my daughter was safe and happy and building blanket forts, where nobody would hurt her or tell her to be quiet or make her feel like she was too much. The next morning I woke up on Nina's couch to 17 missed calls and 29 text messages. Most were from my mother, escalating from angry to desperate. Some were from my father, brief and pleading. 3 were from Rebecca herself. The first one said, Mom told me what you're saying. This is crazy. I would never hurt Emma. The second one said, I don't know what's gotten into you, but you're really hurting me right now. This is my wedding, Sarah. My wedding. The third one said, fine. Don't come. We don't need you there anyway. I read them all while drinking coffee from one of Nina's mismatched mugs. Emma still asleep in the guest room upstairs. Nina sat across from me at her kitchen table watching my face. Bad, she asked. Worse than I expected, I admitted. My mother basically called me a liar and kicked me out. My dad just stood there. And Rebecca is, I gestured at my phone, this. Nina took the phone, read the messages and made a face. Wow. She really made your concerns about her wedding all about her wedding. It would be funny if it wasn't so predictable. So what now? Nina asked. You stand your ground? I stand my ground, I confirmed. We're not going. I'm not putting Emma through that. I don't care if it's paid for or planned or whatever. I'm done. Good, Nina said firmly. Emma comes first. Always. We spent that day deliberately normal. Nina took both girls to the Children's Museum. I went to work, faced my desk and my emails and my projects like they mattered, like the world hadn't fundamentally shifted. My coworkers asked about wedding plans. I smiled and said it was coming along. Nobody needed to know that I just burned every bridge to the family I grew up in. That evening, after picking up Emma, after dinner and bath time and stories, after my daughter fell asleep in her own bed back in our Hawthorne apartment, I sat on my couch and finally turned my phone back on. The messages had multiplied. My mother had left 4 voicemails, each one a progression from anger to bargaining. In the last one, her voice was thick, almost tearful. Sarah, she said. Please. Let's talk about this. I know you're upset, but we can work this out. Rebecca feels terrible. She wants to talk to you. She wants to explain. Please don't do this. Please don't ruin her wedding over a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding. That's what we were calling it now. There was also a message from Aunt Linda, my mother's sister, who I actually liked. Sarah, honey, your mom called me. I don't know what's going on, but whatever it is family. Try to work it out. Life's too short for grudges. And one from my cousin Bethany. Girl, what is happening? Your mom is spiraling. Rebecca's crying. Everyone's taking sides. Did something actually happen, or is this just wedding stress? I deleted them all. Except one. There was a voicemail from a number I didn't recognize. I almost deleted it too, but something made me listen. Ms. Mitchell, a professional voice said, "This is Olivia Chun from Evergreen Estate Events. I'm the wedding coordinator for the Hartford Mitchell wedding. I received a call from Patricia Mitchell this evening asking about canceling certain services related to the flower girl and one bridesmaid position. I wanted to reach out directly before making any changes. Could you please call me back at your earliest convenience to discuss? Thank you." I sat very still. My mother was already trying to erase us from the wedding, canceling Emma's flower girl arrangements, removing my bridesmaid spot, rewriting the story so that we'd never been part of it at all. Fine. Two could play that game. I opened my laptop and started typing. I wasn't sure exactly what I was doing at first, just letting words pour out, all the things I'd never said, all the times I'd swallowed my truth to keep the peace. I wrote about Emma's whispered confession in the car, about my mother's immediate denial, about being called dramatic and selfish and jealous, about the pattern I'd finally seen clearly, the way Rebecca had always been protected, excused, centered, while I'd been expected to be understanding, flexible, easy. I wrote for 2 hours. When I finished, I had something that was part testimony, part manifesto, part goodbye letter to a family that had never really seen me. I didn't post it. Not yet. But I saved it. Titled it simply The Truth. And I waited. The wedding was 12 days away. 12 days during which my phone continued to buzz with increasingly frantic messages. My mother called twice a day. My father sent careful, diplomatic texts asking me to reconsider. Rebecca's messages swung wildly between apologetic and accusatory, sometimes within the same paragraph. "I'm sorry if Emma felt scared, but I barely touched her," one message read. "You're making this into something it's not. I was just trying to get her to listen. Kids need boundaries, Sarah. Maybe if you set more boundaries she wouldn't be so difficult." I screenshotted that message, added it to a folder I'd started keeping. Documentation. Evidence. The paper trail of a family choosing comfort over truth. A week before the wedding, Rebecca tried a different approach. She showed up at my apartment unannounced on a Tuesday evening. I saw her through the peephole, standing in the hallway in expensive athleisure wear, holding a bouquet of sunflowers, Emma's favorite. I didn't open the door. "Sarah," she called through the door. "I know you're home. I can hear the TV. Please, just talk to me for 5 minutes. "No," I called back. "I brought flowers for Emma. An apology. I feel terrible about what happened." "Then leave them outside," I said. "We'll get them later." A pause. Then quieter, "Please don't do this. I'm getting married in a week. I need my sister there. I need Emma there. The photos won't be right without you. The photos. Not I'll miss you. Not I'm sorry I hurt your daughter. Not I understand why you're upset. Just the photos won't be right. Goodbye, Rebecca," I said. I heard her stand there for another minute, heard her breathe, heard what might have been a sob or might have been frustration. Then footsteps. Walking away. The elevator ding. Silence. The sunflowers stayed in the hallway for 2 days before someone from the building management left me a note saying they'd disposed of them. 5 days before the wedding, my mother played her final card. She called from my father's phone, probably knowing I wouldn't answer hers. I picked up out of habit. Before I could speak, she started talking, rapid fire and desperate. "Emma can stay home if you're so worried, but you have to come, Sarah. You're in all the planning. Your dress is already altered. Your name is on the programs. Rebecca's a mess. She's not eating. She's not sleeping. Her hair is falling out from stress. You're doing this to her. Your own sister. Over something that Emma probably exaggerated because kids do that, they exaggerate, they want attention, and you're feeding into it instead of being the adult." I let her finish. Let her run out of breath and arguments and accusations. Then very calmly I said, "Emma doesn't exaggerate trauma, Mom. And the fact that you think protecting Rebecca's wedding is more important than protecting your granddaughter tells me everything about why we're here in the first place." "You ungrateful," she started, but I hung up. Blocked her number. Blocked my father's number. Blocked Rebecca's number. Blocked everyone except Nina and a handful of people who'd never been part of this mess. Then I opened my laptop and looked at the document I'd written. The Truth. I read through it again, edited a few lines, added some details. It was good. Clear. Honest. Devastating. I created a new email address. Something anonymous but clear. Then I found the email addresses for everyone who'd be at that wedding. All the relatives. All of Rebecca's friends. All the people who'd been told I was dramatic, difficult, ruining everything. I attached the document. Wrote a simple subject line. What you should know about the Hartford Mitchell wedding. My cursor hovered over the send button. This would detonate everything. There would be no going back. No reconciliation. No future family Christmases or birthday parties or graduations where we all pretended everything was fine. But we'd never been fine. We'd just been quiet about the ways we weren't. I thought about Emma, asleep in her room, safe and healing. I thought about the circles she'd traced on the foggy car window. I thought about she hit me, whispered in terror. I clicked send. The wedding was in 4 days and I imagined them all receiving the email, opening it, reading the truth laid out in careful paragraphs with screenshots attached. I imagined my mother's face, Rebecca's panic, the whispered phone calls, the emergency family meetings I wouldn't be part of. Let them scramble. Let them explain. Let them feel, just for a moment, what it was like to have your truth dismissed and your pain minimized and your reality questioned. I closed my laptop and went to check on Emma. She was sprawled across her bed in her favorite pajamas, the ones with the stars. Her nightlight cast gentle shadows across her peaceful face. She looked safe. She looked free. That was worth everything. The emails went out at 9:43 on a Thursday night. By 10:15, my anonymous inbox had 3 responses. By midnight, it had 27. By morning, when Emma padded into my room asking for pancakes, it had 62. I didn't read them at first. Just watched the numbers climb while I mixed batter and heated the griddle, while Emma chattered about a dream she'd had involving talking squirrels and a magical treehouse. She seemed lighter lately, less careful with her words, less afraid of taking up space. She'd stopped asking about the wedding entirely, had accepted my simple explanation that we weren't going anymore with nothing more than a small nod and a quiet "oh, okay." Children were resilient, people always said. What they meant was that children were good at adapting to whatever truth the adults around them decided to enforce. Emma had adapted to Sunday brunches where she had to be quiet and careful. Now she was adapting to a world where she didn't have to see the person who'd hurt her. I knew which adaptation I preferred. After breakfast, after Emma settled in with her coloring books, I finally opened the responses. They were a spectrum of human reaction, from supportive to skeptical to outright hostile. Nina's cousin, who'd been invited to the wedding, wrote simply, "Thank you for telling us. I believe you. I won't be attending." One of Rebecca's college friends wrote, "This is insane. You're trying to ruin her wedding because you're jealous she's happy. Everyone knows you've always been bitter about Rebecca's success." My father's brother, Uncle Tom, sent a long rambling message about how family disagreements should stay private, how airing dirty laundry helped nobody, how I should have come to them first before going nuclear. The irony of him lecturing me about going to family first, when I'd literally done exactly that and been dismissed, wasn't lost on me. But it was Aunt Linda's response that made me pause. She'd written, "Sarah, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. When your mother called me last week, she made it sound like you were being unreasonable over wedding planning stress. She didn't tell me about Emma. She didn't tell me what Rebecca did. I'm horrified. I'm heartbroken. And I'm not going to that wedding either. Call me when you're ready. I love you." I read it 3 times. Then I cried for the first time since this whole thing started. Sitting at my kitchen table with cold coffee, and my daughter's happy humming floating in from the living room. Someone believed me. Someone heard the truth and didn't immediately try to explain it away or minimize it, or tell me I was overreacting. It shouldn't have felt revolutionary. It shouldn't have felt like a revelation. But it did. My phone rang. Not the blocked numbers, but Nina. I answered. "Have you seen the group chat?" she asked without preamble. "What group chat?" "The one all the wedding guests are apparently in. Rebecca created it months ago for updates and coordinating hotels and whatever. Someone forwarded me screenshots. It's chaos, Sarah. Complete chaos." She sent them through while we were still on the phone. I scrolled through page after page of messages, people taking sides, demanding explanations, some defending Rebecca, some expressing shock, some saying they'd always thought something was off about the family dynamics. The wedding coordinator, Olivia, had apparently sent a professional but pointed message asking if the event was still happening and if so, should she expect significant changes to the guest count. Rebecca had responded with a long paragraph about how this was all a misunderstanding, how I was going through a difficult time after my divorce and sometimes projected my unhappiness onto others, how she loved Emma and would never hurt her but sometimes children misinterpreted normal adult corrections, how she hoped everyone would still celebrate this joyous occasion despite her sister's unfortunate breakdown. My unfortunate breakdown. That was the story she was going with. Nina was still on the phone. "You okay?" "I'm fine," I said, and I meant it. Let her spin it however she wants. The truth is out there now. People can decide what to believe. A lot of people are backing out, Nina reported. I'm seeing at least 15 people saying they can't make it anymore. Some are being diplomatic about it, prior commitments suddenly remembered, but some are being pretty direct about why. Good, I said. Your mom's apparently losing it. Someone posted that Patricia called them crying, begging them to please still come, that the family was going through a hard time but the wedding needed to go on. The family was going through a hard time. Not Emma's going through a hard time after being hit. Not I need to reflect on how I failed my granddaughter. Just vague family difficulties that had nothing to do with anyone's actual actions or choices. I felt detached from it all suddenly, like I was watching a play I'd already seen the ending to. These people, this drama, this desperate scrambling to preserve appearances, it had nothing to do with me anymore. I'd said what I needed to say. I protected my daughter. What happened next at some vineyard an hour outside Portland was no longer my concern. The day before the wedding, I took Emma to the Saturday market downtown. We wandered through stalls selling handmade jewelry and organic vegetables and tie-dyed shirts that smelled like patchouli. Emma picked out a small ceramic dragon, hand-painted in shades of purple and blue, and clutched it like treasure all the way home. We got Thai food from her favorite cart, the one where the woman always remembered that Emma liked her pad Thai with extra peanuts, and we ate sitting on a bench watching street musicians play songs I didn't recognize. My phone buzzed occasionally. I ignored it. Whatever was happening in Lake Oswego, whatever final preparations were underway at the Evergreen estate, whatever panic or anger or recrimination was swirling through my former family, none of it could touch us here. Here was just me and my daughter and a purple dragon and extra peanuts and the kind of ordinary happiness that didn't need an audience. That evening, after Emma went to bed, I allowed myself to look at the messages I'd been avoiding. My mother had found a way around the block, messaging me from someone else's phone. The message was long, rambling, desperate. "Sarah, please," it began. "This has gone too far. Do you have any idea what you've done? Half the guests have canceled. Rebecca is devastated. The caterer is asking if we need to adjust the meal count. The photographer heard rumors and wanted to know if the wedding was even happening. Your sister has worked so hard for this day. She's dreamed about this since she was a little girl. And you're destroying it over something that Emma misconstrued. Children don't understand context. They don't understand that sometimes adults need to be firm with them. Rebecca was just trying to help, trying to teach Emma some manners because God knows you don't seem to think that's important. But fine. Fine. If you need Rebecca to apologize to make yourself feel better, she will. She'll apologize to Emma. She'll say whatever you want her to say. Just please stop this. Please let the wedding happen in peace. Please stop poisoning people against your own family." I read it twice. Then I typed a single response. No. I didn't elaborate. Didn't explain. Didn't justify. Just no. Then I deleted the message thread and put my phone on airplane mode. The wedding was tomorrow. I wondered if it would actually happen, if Rebecca would stand in front of whoever was left and marry Derek in her carefully planned ceremony, or if the whole thing would collapse under the weight of too many cancellations and too much truth. Part of me was curious. Most of me didn't care. Nina called that night on my laptop through video chat since my phone was still in airplane mode. She looked concerned but also slightly amused. "You've officially become a legend," she informed me. "People are calling you the wedding destroyer. There's apparently a betting pool about whether the ceremony actually happens tomorrow." "That's ridiculous," I said. "It's kind of amazing though," Nina continued. "I've never seen someone stand their ground like this. No yelling, no public scenes, just quiet, immovable truth. It's honestly inspiring." "I don't feel inspiring," I admitted. "I just feel tired." "That's because you've been carrying the weight of other people's denial for years," Nina said gently. "You're tired because you finally put it down. Give yourself time to adjust to not being crushed." She wasn't wrong. I had been crushed, I realized. compressed into a smaller, quieter version of myself to make room for Rebecca's brightness, my mother's need for perfection, my father's need for peace. And now, stretched back to my full size, everything ached. "What are you doing tomorrow?" Nina asked. I thought about it. Tomorrow, while my sister may or may not be getting married at a vineyard estate, while my mother may or may not be greeting guests and pretending everything was fine, while my father may or may not be walking Rebecca down an aisle, I would be here. In my apartment. With my daughter. Something normal, I said. Something that has nothing to do with weddings or family or any of this. Maybe the zoo. Emma's been wanting to see the new penguin exhibit. Perfect, Nina said. Normal is underrated. The wedding was scheduled for 2 in the afternoon. I woke up that morning to pale September sunlight and the sound of Emma singing to herself in her room. I made coffee, scrambled eggs, avoided my phone. Nina had agreed to take Emma to the zoo with her own daughter, giving me the afternoon to myself. I wasn't sure what I'd do with the time. Maybe nothing. Maybe sit in silence and let myself feel whatever came up without judgment or analysis. Emma was excited about the penguins, talking nonstop through breakfast about whether they'd be swimming or sleeping and did I think they knew how to play games and could penguins be friends with people. I braided her hair, packed her backpack with snacks and her water bottle, watched her skip down the stairs ahead of me toward Nina's waiting car. "Call if you need anything," Nina said through her car window, her eyes searching my face. "I will," I promised. "Have fun with the penguins." They drove off and I was alone. It was 11 in the morning. 3 hours until the wedding started. If it started. I went back upstairs, changed into comfortable clothes, made another cup of coffee. Sat on my couch with a book I'd been meaning to read for months. Couldn't focus on a single word. My mind kept drifting to the Evergreen estate, to what might be happening there right now. Was Rebecca getting her hair done? Was my mother frantically checking RSVPs? Was Derek wondering what he was marrying into? At noon, my laptop dinged with an email. The anonymous account I'd created. I almost didn't open it, but curiosity won out. It was from Olivia, the wedding coordinator. The subject line read, "You should know. Ms. Mitchell," the email began. "I'm not sure if you'll see this, but I felt you deserved an update. As of this morning, we've had 42 cancellations for the Hartford Mitchell wedding. That's out of an original guest list of 115. The bride's mother called me at 7 a.m., asking if we could rearrange the seating chart to make the remaining guests look less sparse. The bride herself called at 8 asking if we could reduce the centerpiece count to save money. At 9, the groom's parents called asking if they could speak with you directly. I told them I didn't have your contact information, which was true at the time. At 10, the bride called again and asked if we'd ever had a wedding completely fall apart before. I told her no, not like this. She cried for 20 minutes. I'm telling you this not to be cruel, but because I've coordinated over 300 weddings and I've never seen anything like what your email revealed. I've seen family drama, yes. Cold feet, absolutely. But I've never seen a bride's own sister expose abuse and watch half the guest list choose the child's safety over social obligation. I hope your daughter is okay. I hope you're okay. And I hope whatever happens this afternoon, that you know you did the right thing. Professionally, I'm obligated to execute the event as planned. Personally, I wanted you to know that some strangers are in your corner. Olivia Chen. I read it 3 times. Felt something loosen in my chest that I hadn't realized was still tight. A wedding coordinator I'd never met believed me, supported me, understood what I'd done and why. 1 p.m. came and went. I tried to read, tried to watch television, ended up just sitting at my kitchen table, staring at nothing, thinking about everything. At 1:45, my laptop dinged again. Another email. This one from an address I recognized, my cousin Bethany. The subject line was just, "Holy shit. Sarah," the email. Read. "I'm sitting in my car outside the venue and I don't think I can go in. There are maybe 30 cars in the parking lot. Maybe. The place looks half empty. Your mom is standing at the entrance in her mother of the bride dress looking like she's aged 10 years. Rebecca apparently locked herself in the bridal suite an hour ago and won't come out. Derek is chain-smoking behind the building. I saw him when I pulled up. His parents look pissed. Half the people who did show up are standing around whispering about your email. Some guy I've never met just told me he only came because he already paid for his hotel room. This is the saddest thing I've ever seen. I know you and I haven't been close. I know I sent you that message last week asking if this was wedding stress. I'm sorry for that. I read what you wrote. I believe you. And I'm sitting here realizing that I've watched your family treat you like the problem for years and never said anything. I'm not going in. I'm going to text Rebecca that I have food poisoning and then I'm going to drive home. But I wanted you to know that you were right. About all of it. And I'm sorry it took me this long to see it. Bethany. 2 p.m. The ceremony should be starting. I imagined the processional music playing to a half-empty room. The officiant waiting awkwardly. My mother probably forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Rebecca walking down an aisle lined with whispers and judgment instead of joy. I felt no satisfaction in it. No triumph. Just a deep, bone-tired sadness that it had come to this. That protecting a child had required destroying a wedding. That telling the truth had required burning everything down. But I'd do it again. Every single time. At 2:30 Nina sent a photo. Emma and her daughter in front of the penguin enclosure. Both girls grinning. Emma holding up her ceramic dragon like she wanted the penguins to see it. The caption read, "Having the best time. Penguins are very serious about swimming." I smiled. Saved the photo. That was what mattered. Not what was or wasn't happening at some vineyard. Not the wreckage of a wedding or a family. Just Emma, happy and safe and showing her dragon to penguins. At 3 p.m. another email arrived. This one from an address I didn't recognize. The subject line made my heart stop. From Rebecca. I stared at it for a long time before opening it. When I finally did, it was short. "Sarah, you win. The wedding's off. Or postponed. I don't know. Derek's family left. Most of our friends left. Mom is having a breakdown in the bathroom. Dad just sits there like always useless. I hope you're happy. I hope destroying this was worth it. You're right that I hit Emma. I did. I was stressed and she wouldn't stop talking and I snapped. It was wrong. I know it was wrong. But it was one time, Sarah. One time. And you burned my entire life down over it. I'll never forgive you for this. Never. We're done. The whole family is done with you. I hope your righteous anger keeps you warm at night, because you'll never be welcome at another family event again. You've made your choice. Live with it. Rebecca. I read it once. Then I closed my laptop and went to stand by the window. Outside, Portland stretched out in all directions, the city I'd grown up in, the streets I knew by heart. Somewhere out there, my family was imploding. My mother was probably still trying to salvage something, anything. My father was probably sitting in helpless silence. Rebecca was probably crying or raging or both. And here I was, standing in afternoon light in my quiet apartment, feeling nothing but relief. I'd made my choice. I would live with it. When Nina brought Emma home that evening, my daughter burst through the door chattering about penguins and sea lions and the ice cream they'd gotten afterward. She didn't ask about the wedding. Didn't mention Rebecca or my parents or anything beyond the immediate joy of her day. After she was asleep, Nina and I sat on my couch with wine in silence. "It's over," I finally said. "The wedding. Rebecca sent me an email. They called it off." Nina nodded slowly. "How do you feel?" "Free," I said. "And sad. And sure. All at the same time." "That sounds about right," Nina said. We sat there as the city lights came on outside, as the September evening cooled into night, as the day that was supposed to be my sister's wedding became just another Saturday that passed without ceremony or celebration. I thought about the email I'd sent, the truth I'd told, the bridge I'd burned so completely there was no rebuilding it. I thought about Emma's whispered confession in a foggy car. I thought about my mother's voice calling me dramatic. I thought about Rebecca's admission buried in anger. "You're right that I hit Emma," as if admitting it while still being furious about the consequences somehow counted as accountability. I thought about all of it, and I knew with absolute certainty that I would make the same choice every single time. Some bridges deserved to burn. The weeks after the wedding that wasn't were strange in the way that grief is strange. Not a single overwhelming wave but a series of small absences that accumulated into something heavier. There was the Sunday morning when I automatically started to get Emma ready for brunch at my parents' house before remembering we'd never go there again. There was the afternoon I saw a mother and two adult daughters laughing together at a coffee shop and felt the loss of something I'd never actually had. There was the moment Emma asked why Grandma Patricia hadn't called in a while, and I had to decide how much truth a 7-year-old could carry. I told her that sometimes families go through changes, that sometimes people need space from each other, that it didn't mean anyone stopped loving anyone else but that love looked different than we'd thought it did. Emma accepted this with the fluid logic of childhood, nodded seriously, and asked if we could get a hamster since we had more free time now without family dinners. We did not get a hamster, but we did start new Sunday traditions. The farmer's market in the Old Town neighborhood where Emma loved the booth that sold handmade soap shaped like animals. Breakfast at a diner near the river where the waitress knew to bring Emma's chocolate milk before we even ordered. Long walks through Forest Park where the trees grew so thick the city noise disappeared entirely, and it felt like we'd stepped into a different world. Nina joined us most Sundays, her daughter Maya becoming Emma's constant companion, the two of them inventing elaborate games involving fairies and dragons and kingdoms that needed saving. I watched them play and thought about the family you choose versus the family you're born into, about how sometimes the people who show up without obligation love you better than the people who are supposed to love you because of it. October arrived with that particular Pacific Northwest beauty, leaves turning gold and red against perpetually gray skies, the smell of rain and wood smoke, everything feeling both melancholy and hopeful at once. Emma started second grade with a new teacher who sent home notes about how well she was participating, how creative her stories were, how she'd helped a new student feel welcome. My daughter was thriving, blooming in the space that used to be occupied by careful silence at family gatherings. I tried not to think about Rebecca, tried not to wonder if she'd rescheduled the wedding or if Derek had walked away entirely, tried not to care whether my mother had processed anything or just folded it all into her narrative of Sarah ruins everything and Rebecca is the victim. But of course I thought about it. Of course I wondered. You don't excise 32 years of family in a few weeks without the ghost of it lingering. The first contact came 6 weeks after the canceled wedding. Not from my mother or Rebecca, but from my father. A text message, brief and carefully worded like he'd drafted it multiple times. Sarah, I know you don't want to hear from us. I understand why. But I need you to know that I've been thinking about what happened. Really thinking. Your mother and I are in counseling. Rebecca moved the wedding to next spring and she and Derek are in therapy too. I'm not asking you to forgive us or come back. I'm just asking you to know that we're trying to understand what we did wrong. I'm trying to understand what I did wrong. Mostly not doing anything when I should have. I miss you. I miss Emma. But I respect your boundaries. I just wanted you to know we're working on being better. Even if it's too late for you to see it. Dad. I read it standing in the produce section of the grocery store, holding a bag of apples, surrounded by strangers living their ordinary lives. I read it 3 times and felt something crack open in my chest that I'd kept carefully sealed. He wasn't asking for anything. Wasn't demanding I come back or forgive or make it easy. Just telling me they were trying. Just admitting fault. Just saying I miss you without making it my responsibility to fix. I didn't respond right away. Put my phone back in my pocket, finished my shopping, drove home, put groceries away. Made dinner, helped Emma with homework, gave her a bath, read her 3 chapters of the book we were working through together. Only after she was asleep did I sit with my phone and type a response. Dad, thank you for telling me. I appreciate that you're getting help. I'm not ready for contact yet. Maybe someday. But I needed to hear that you understand why I did what I did. That means something. Sarah. I hit send before I could second guess it. My father responded within minutes. I understand. Take all the time you need. I love you. 3 words I couldn't remember him saying in years. I love you. Not I'm disappointed in you or why can't you be more like your sister or stop being so dramatic. Just I love you. It didn't fix anything. Didn't erase the years of being second choice or the way they protected Rebecca instead of Emma. But it was something. A small crack in the wall. Not enough to walk through but enough to let a little light in. 2 weeks later a package arrived. No return address, but I recognized my Aunt Linda's handwriting. Inside was a beautiful children's book about a girl and her grandmother going on adventures, along with a note. Sarah, I think about you and Emma all the time. I hope you're both doing well. I hope you're healing. I'm enclosing something for Emma because I miss her and I want her to know her Aunt Linda thinks about her even if we can't see each other right now. I also want you to know that I had a very long conversation with your mother. It didn't go well. She's not ready to admit what needs admitting. But I told her that I stood with you, that what happened to Emma was unforgivable, and that she lost a daughter the day she chose protecting Rebecca's wedding over protecting her granddaughter. I don't know if it meant anything to her, but I needed to say it. You were brave, Sarah. You did the right thing. Don't let anyone make you doubt that. Love always, Linda. I gave Emma the book that night. She loved it, wanted to read it twice before bed, pointed to the grandmother in the illustrations and said she looks nice, like someone who would give good hugs. I agreed. I didn't tell her it was from Linda. Didn't want to confuse her with the complicated topography of family estrangement. But I kept the note in my bedside drawer, and sometimes on hard days, I took it out and read it again. You were brave. You did the right thing. Halloween came and Emma dressed as a purple dragon, inspired by the ceramic one she bought at the market. Nina and I took the girls trick-or-treating through the Hawthorne neighborhood, the streets full of families and decorations, and the particular magic of children transformed into creatures and characters. Emma's bag filled with candy, and she chattered the whole way home about which house had the best decorations, and whether dragons would actually like chocolate or prefer something else. We carved pumpkins on my apartment floor, newspaper spread everywhere, Emma's small hands scooping out seeds with intense concentration. I roasted the seeds with salt, and we ate them while watching a movie that was supposed to be spooky but was mostly just silly. Emma fell asleep on the couch, her dragon costume still on, orange pumpkin guts somehow in her hair. I carried her to bed, cleaned her up gently, tucked her in, and stood in her doorway watching her sleep. This was enough. This quiet life we were building. This safety and silliness in Saturday markets. This was more than enough. November brought rain that didn't stop, the kind of gray wet cold that settled into your bones and made you want to hibernate. Emma caught a cold that lasted 2 weeks, spent days home from school curled up on the couch with books and juice boxes and too much screen time that I allowed without guilt. I worked from home when I could, took her temperature, made soup, read stories in funny voices until she giggled. On one of those gray afternoons, my phone rang with an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Sarah. The voice was familiar but different, somehow smaller. It was Rebecca. I didn't hang up, but I didn't speak either. I know you probably don't want to talk to me, she continued, words tumbling out quickly like she was afraid I'd disconnect. I know I have no right to call. But I'm in therapy twice a week now, and my therapist said, well, she said a lot of things, but one of them was that I needed to actually apologize to you. Not the fake apology I sent in that angry email. A real one. I waited. I hit your daughter, Rebecca said, and her voice cracked. I was stressed and overwhelmed, and I took it out on a 7-year-old child who was just being a normal excited kid. That's inexcusable. There's no justification for it. I told myself I barely touched her, that it wasn't that bad, that you were overreacting. But the truth is I put my hands on a child in anger, and that's abuse. My therapist made me say it out loud, made me sit with it. I abused Emma. I hurt her. And then when you tried to protect her, I made it about me. I made it about my wedding and my stress and my feelings. I didn't think about Emma at all. I didn't think about you. I just wanted everyone to stop making my special day difficult. The rain drummed against my window. Emma coughed from the couch where she was watching cartoons. I'm not calling to ask for forgiveness, Rebecca continued. I don't deserve that. I'm calling to tell you that you were right. About everything. About me, about Mom, about how our family works. You were right and I was wrong, and I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. If you want to hang up now, I understand. But I needed you to hear that. You deserve to hear that. Why now, I finally said. Why 6 weeks later? Because it took me 6 weeks to stop being angry and start being honest, she said quietly. It took Derek almost leaving. Took Mom having a breakdown. It took my therapist asking me to describe what I did to Emma from Emma's perspective instead of mine. When I did that, when I imagined being 7 years old and having an adult hit me for being excited, I finally got it. I finally understood what I'd done. And I was horrified. Silence stretched between us, filled with rain and regret, and the distant sound of cartoon music. How is Emma? Rebecca asked softly. She's good, I said. She's healing. She doesn't flinch anymore when I touch her shoulder. I heard Rebecca's breath catch, almost a sob. I did that to her. I made her afraid. Yes, I said simply. I'm sorry, Rebecca whispered. I know it doesn't change anything, but I'm so sorry. It doesn't change anything, I agreed. But I'm glad you understand now. Are we? She started, then stopped. Are we ever going to be okay? As sisters? I don't know, I said honestly. Right now I need to focus on Emma and making sure she feels safe. Maybe someday we can have some kind of relationship. But it would be a different one. It would require you to do the work you're doing and keep doing it. It would require you to understand that you don't get to be around Emma until she's ready, if she's ever ready. It would require accepting that actions have consequences, and you don't get to skip to forgiveness without earning it. That's fair, Rebecca said. That's more than fair. I'll do the work. I can't promise I'll be perfect, but I'll try. We hung up shortly after. I sat with the phone in my hand processing. It wasn't closure exactly. Wasn't reconciliation. But it was something. An acknowledgement. An apology that didn't come with conditions or excuses. A sister finally seeing what she'd done instead of just defending herself. It was more than I'd expected. Less than I needed. But it was honest, and honesty was something I could work with. December arrived with unexpected snow, unusual for Portland, and the city transformed into something from a storybook. Emma was ecstatic, bundled in layers, making snow angels in our tiny patch of yard, her laughter bright against the white silence. We built a lopsided snowman with a carrot nose and rocks for eyes and one of my old scarves wrapped around its neck. Nina and Maya came over, and we had hot chocolate with marshmallows while the girls played in the snow until their fingers went numb. We ordered pizza and watched holiday movies, and somewhere in the middle of it all I realized I was happy. Genuinely, unexpectedly happy. Not the performance of happiness, not the careful maintenance of appearing fine, but actual contentment with the life I'd built from the ruins of the one I'd left behind. Christmas came and there were no invitations to family gatherings, no tense negotiations about whose house to visit, no bracing myself for subtle criticisms or comparisons to Rebecca. Instead, Nina hosted a misfit Christmas at her house, a collection of friends who'd all become family by choice. We exchanged modest gifts and ate too much food and played games that made no sense but had us all laughing until we cried. Emma got the bike she'd been wanting, purple with streamers on the handlebars. She rode it in circles around Nina's living room until we made her stop before she crashed into the tree. She fell asleep that night in my lap, exhausted and happy, and whispered that this was the best Christmas ever. It was the best Christmas I'd had in years. On New Year's Eve, after Emma was asleep, I sat alone with a glass of wine and thought about the year that was ending. I thought about a foggy car window and 3 whispered words that changed everything. I thought about a wedding invitation I never received for a wedding that never happened. I thought about emails sent and bridges burned and the weight of a child's safety measured against the cost of family approval. I thought about my father's text and Rebecca's phone call and Aunt Linda's note. I thought about healing that happened slowly, in layers like sediment building into something solid. I thought about Emma's laughter and purple dragons and the way she'd stopped being careful about taking up space. The year had broken me open, had required me to choose between being comfortable and being honest, between being easy and being protective, between keeping peace and demanding justice. I'd chosen honesty and protection and justice, and it had cost me almost everything I thought I needed. But what I'd gained was something I'd never had before. Integrity. The bone-deep knowledge that I'd stood up for what mattered. The certainty that my daughter knew I would always choose her safety over anyone else's convenience. As midnight approached and fireworks started popping in the distance, I made a resolution. Not to lose weight or exercise more or any of the usual performative goals. Just this, to keep choosing truth even when it's hard. To keep protecting the vulnerable even when it costs. To keep building a life that doesn't require me to be smaller or quieter or easier than I am. The new year arrived with distant cheers and nearby silence. I raised my glass to the empty room, to the sleeping child down the hall, to the version of myself who'd sat in a foggy car 6 months ago and heard she hit me and decided that everything would change. Here's to the bridges we burn, I whispered to no one, and the ground we stand on after. 3 months into the new year on a rainy March afternoon, I got another text from my father. Sarah, would you be willing to meet with me? Just me. Coffee somewhere public. I have some things I'd like to say in person. No pressure. I understand if you're not ready. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I called Nina. What do you think? I asked after explaining. I think that's up to you, she said. Do you want to see him? I don't know, I admitted. Part of me does. Part of me is terrified it'll just be more disappointment. Then meet him somewhere you feel safe, Nina said. Give him 30 minutes. See what he has to say. You can always leave. So I agreed. We met at a coffee shop in neutral territory, neither his neighborhood nor mine, a place with big windows and good exit routes. My father arrived exactly on time, looking older than I remembered, grayer, more uncertain. We ordered coffee, sat at a corner table, and he said the words I'd needed to hear my entire life. Sarah, I failed you. For years. I let your mother set the tone and I went along with it because it was easier than confronting hard truths. I let Rebecca get away with things I never would have let you get away with. I minimized your feelings and dismissed your concerns, and when you needed me to stand up for Emma, I sat there in silence while your mother attacked you. I've been thinking about that night, about watching you leave, and I'm ashamed. I'm ashamed of the father I was. I'm ashamed of the grandfather I was. You deserved better. Emma deserved better. And I'm not asking for forgiveness or reconciliation. I'm just asking you to know that I see it now. I see what I did and what I didn't do, and I'm trying to be different. I'm trying to be the father I should have been all along, even if it's too late for you to benefit from it. He wasn't crying, but his voice was thick with emotion. I sat across from him, this man who'd raised me, who'd taught me to ride a bike and helped with math homework and walked me down the aisle at my wedding, and I saw him clearly for maybe the first time. Not a villain. Not a hero. Just a person who'd made terrible choices and was finally acknowledging them. Thank you, I said quietly, for saying that. We talked for an hour. He told me about the counseling, about the things he was learning about enabling and conflict avoidance. He told me that my mother was still struggling, still wanted to believe that everything was a misunderstanding, but that he'd stopped letting her version become the family truth. He told me Rebecca's wedding was back on for June, much smaller, mostly Derek's family and a few close friends. Will you be there? I asked. Yes, he said. But I told Rebecca I wouldn't walk her down the aisle. I told her that privilege belonged to a father who'd protected his whole family, not just his favorite daughter. She's asked your Uncle Tom to do it instead. I blinked in surprise. That must have been hard. It was necessary, he said simply. Actions have consequences. I'm learning that from you. We parted with a careful hug. Nothing resolved, but something shifted. I drove home feeling lighter and heavier at the same time. The complicated weight of hope mixed with grief for all the years we'd lost to silence. Emma asked how it went when I picked her up from Nina's. I told her Grandpa Robert said he was sorry and that he missed her. She considered this seriously, then said maybe he could come to my birthday party. If he promises to be nice. Maybe, I said. We'll see. Her 8th birthday came in April with a celebration at the park. A dozen of her school friends running wild on the playground. Nina helping me manage the chaos. My father came, brought Emma a telescope she'd been wanting, hung back respectfully but smiled when she threw her arms around him and thanked him enthusiastically. He helped set up the piñata and served cake and didn't ask for more than I was ready to give. It was a beginning. Small, careful, uncertain. But a beginning nonetheless. By summer, Emma and I had built a life that felt solid and ours. We had our routines and our people and our Saturday markets. We had dinner with Nina's family twice a week. We had a small garden on our apartment balcony where Emma grew tomatoes that she was absurdly proud of. We had movie nights and bike rides and the kind of ordinary happiness that doesn't make good stories but makes a good life. I'd started dating someone, a teacher from Emma's school named Marcus, who was patient and kind and thought it was brave, not dramatic, that I'd chosen my daughter over family approval. We took things slowly, coffee dates and museum trips, getting to know each other without pressure or urgency. Emma liked him, said he was funny and knew a lot about bugs. That felt like enough endorsement for now. One evening in late June, almost exactly a year after that foggy car window and those 3 whispered words, Emma and I were making dinner together. She was chattering about summer camp, and her new friend Zoe, and whether caterpillars dreamed when they were in their cocoons. Mama, she said suddenly, looking up from the carrot she was peeling, I'm glad we don't go to those family dinners anymore. I paused, surprised. Why's that, sweetie? Because I like our dinners better, she said simply. It's just us and we can be silly and I don't have to be quiet. This is better. I knelt down to her level, looked into my daughter's clear, honest eyes. You're right, I said. This is better. She hugged me tight, smelling like carrots and shampoo and the particular sweetness of childhood. When she pulled back, she asked, do you think we'll ever see Aunt Becca again? Maybe someday, I said honestly. But she keeps working on being kinder. If you decide you want to, But only if you feel safe. You get to choose. Emma nodded, accepting this. Then she went back to her carrot, the question answered, the concern released. I watched her and thought about all the ways children teach us to let go, to live in the present, to accept what is instead of mourning what should have been. That night, after Emma was asleep, I sat on my balcony with the last light fading over Portland. I thought about the year behind me, the family I'd lost and the one I'd found. I thought about truth and consequences and the price of protecting what mattered most. My phone buzzed. A text from Rebecca. Just wanted you to know I got married today. Small ceremony. It was beautiful. I wish you could have been there. But I understand why you weren't. I hope you and Emma are well. Maybe someday we can talk. Really talk. When you're ready. If you're ever ready. I read it twice. Then I typed back. Congratulations. I'm glad you had a beautiful day. Maybe someday. Take care of yourself, Rebecca. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't reconciliation. It was just acknowledgement that we both existed, that we'd both changed, that maybe in some distant future there could be some version of sisterhood that didn't require me to sacrifice my daughter's safety for family harmony. The summer stars came out above me, bright against the darkening sky. Somewhere in the apartment behind me, Emma was dreaming safe dreams. Somewhere across town, Nina was probably reading to Maya. Somewhere in Lake Oswego, my father was maybe thinking about the daughter he'd failed and the granddaughter he'd neglected and the man he was trying to become. And here I was on a balcony in Hawthorne, whole and free and certain that I'd made the right choice even though it had cost me everything I thought I needed. The truth had burned bridges. The truth had canceled weddings. The truth had fractured families and forced reckonings. But the truth had also saved my daughter. Had taught her that she mattered more than appearances, that her safety was worth fighting for, that love without protection was just a pretty word that meant nothing. And that, I thought as the last light faded and the city settled into night, was worth every single bridge I'd burned. 2 years had passed since the wedding that never was, and Portland had moved through seasons the way it always did. Rain giving way to brief summer sun before circling back to gray skies and persistent drizzle. Emma was 9 now, taller, her face losing some of its roundness, her questions getting more complex and her understanding of the world deepening in ways that both delighted and terrified me. We'd settled into a rhythm that felt less like survival and more like actual living. The apartment in Hawthorne had become truly ours, filled with Emma's art projects and the second-hand furniture we'd picked out together and plants that I somehow managed to keep alive. The walls held photos of us at Cannon Beach, at the Saturday market, at Nina's house during various holidays. A visual timeline of a life rebuilt from intentional choices, rather than inherited obligations. Marcus had become a fixture in our lives, patient and steady in a way that felt revolutionary after the chaos of my marriage to Emma's father. He understood that Emma came first, that some weekends were just for us, that building trust took time. He taught Emma about constellations and took us camping in the gorge and never once suggested that my boundaries were inconvenient. On a rainy evening in October, he'd asked if I'd ever consider marriage again, and I'd been honest. Maybe, but not soon, and not without being absolutely certain it was adding to our peace rather than disrupting it. He'd nodded, kissed my forehead, and said he could wait as long as I needed. My relationship with my father had evolved into something cautious but real. Monthly coffee dates where we talked about safe things at first, books and weather and Emma's latest interests, then gradually, carefully harder topics. He'd tell me about his therapy sessions, about the patterns he was recognizing, about the ways he'd failed not just me but himself by choosing comfort over courage. I'd tell him about Emma's progress, about my work, about the life I was building. We didn't talk about my mother much. That wound was still too fresh, too complicated. Patricia Mitchell remained largely absent from my life by mutual unspoken agreement. My father mentioned her occasionally, updates delivered carefully like weather reports about a distant storm. She was still in counseling but struggling to accept responsibility. She missed Emma but couldn't bring herself to apologize for prioritizing Rebecca. She wanted reconciliation but only on terms that didn't require her to admit she'd been wrong. I'd stopped waiting for her to evolve. Some people couldn't change, wouldn't change, and making peace with that was its own kind of freedom. Rebecca and I had achieved something like détente. We weren't close, would probably never be close again, but we'd found a way to exist in the same universe without active hostility. She sent cards on Emma's birthday, always with a note that said thinking of you both, never pushing for more. She'd had a baby that spring, a daughter named Sophie, and had sent a photo with a message that said, "Becoming a mother has made me understand even more what I took from you. I'm sorry every single day." I'd sent back congratulations and meant it. Her journey toward accountability was hers to walk, and while I hoped she'd be a better mother than she'd been a sister, I didn't need to be involved in finding out. Aunt Linda had remained a steady presence, cards and occasional phone calls, invitations to lunch when she was in Portland visiting friends. She'd become Emma's favorite relative by virtue of being one of the only ones, and Emma treasured the books Linda sent and the stories she told about our family's history, the good parts, the parts worth remembering. It was a strange kind of family structure rebuilt from fragments selective about what it included. But it worked. It was honest. And honesty, I'd learned, was worth more than the appearance of unity. The call came on a Tuesday afternoon in November, 2 weeks before Thanksgiving. I was at work, reviewing marketing proposals for a client campaign, when my phone rang with my father's number. We didn't usually talk during work hours, so I answered immediately, worried. "Sarah," his voice was strained. "It's your mother. She's in the hospital. She collapsed this morning. They think it might be her heart." I sat very still, my office suddenly feeling too small and too bright. "Is she okay?" "They're running tests. She's stable now, but," he paused, struggling. "She's asking for you. Both of you. You and Emma." Of course she was. Crisis had a way of clarifying what people claimed they could live without. I closed my eyes, thought about the last 2 years, about the boundaries I'd built and the peace I'd found. Thought about Emma, who barely remembered her grandmother now, who'd built a life that didn't include Sunday brunches or family obligations, or the complicated weight of Patricia Mitchell's expectations. "I'll come," I heard myself say. But just me. Emma's in school and I'm not bringing her into this without knowing more. "I understand," my father said, relief evident in his voice. "Thank you, Sarah." I drove to the hospital through typical Portland traffic, rain making everything slick and slow, gave myself time to think about what I was walking into. The last time I'd seen my mother had been that night in her living room, her face flushed with anger, her voice calling me selfish and dramatic. 2 years ago. 2 years of silence broken only by the occasional second-hand update from my father. The hospital smelled like antiseptic and bad coffee. I found my father in the cardiac wing waiting room, looking older than he had at Emma's birthday party, his shoulders curved inward like he was trying to make himself smaller. He stood when he saw me, attempted a smile that didn't quite work. "She's sleeping now," he said. "But she'll want to see you when she wakes up." We sat together in uncomfortable chairs, not talking, just existing in that peculiar limbo of hospital waiting. Finally he said, "I'm glad you came. I wasn't sure you would." "I'm not sure I would have 6 months ago," I admitted. "But Emma asked me recently what I'd want her to do if I was sick and we'd had a fight. I told her I'd want her to be safe and make choices that felt right for her, not choices based on guilt or obligation. But I also realized I'd want her to at least show up, to at least try. So here I am, trying." He nodded slowly. "You're a better person than I am. I'm a person who's had to learn the hard way that boundaries and compassion can coexist," I corrected. "That protecting myself doesn't mean abandoning everyone. It just means being careful about who gets access and on what terms." A nurse appeared. Let us know my mother was awake and asking for visitors. My father stood, but I touched his arm. "Can I go in alone first?" He understood, sat back down. I walked down the hallway, counting room numbers, preparing myself for whatever version of Patricia Mitchell I was about to encounter. She looked smaller in the hospital bed, diminished somehow without her usual armor of perfect hair and carefully chosen clothing. The hospital gown washed out her complexion, and the various monitors beeped quietly around her like a mechanical chorus. Her eyes were closed but opened when I stepped into the room. "Sarah," she whispered, and her voice cracked. "You came." "I came," I confirmed, staying near the door, not approaching the bed. "Dad said you wanted to see me." Tears spilled down her cheeks, surprising me. "I thought you'd say no." "I thought after everything you just let me." She couldn't finish the sentence. "Let you what?" I asked quietly. "Die alone?" "I'm not that person, Mom. I never was. Even when you tried to make me into the villain of your story." She closed her eyes, more tears escaping. "I was wrong," she said. "About so many things. I was wrong about Rebecca. Wrong about you. Wrong about what mattered. I'd imagined this moment in various forms over the past 2 years. Sometimes I imagine myself triumphant, watching her finally admit fault. Sometimes I imagine myself cold, unmoved by her crisis-induced epiphany. But standing there actually hearing the words, I felt mostly tired. Tired of the weight of family dysfunction. Tired of carrying anger. Tired of the whole exhausting cycle of hurt and defense and hurt again. What changed, I asked. Why now? She opened her eyes, looked at me directly. I had a heart attack, Sarah. I'm 58 years old and my heart stopped working properly because I've spent so much energy on the wrong things. On appearances and perfection and making sure everyone thought our family was fine when it wasn't. And when I was lying on the kitchen floor this morning waiting for the ambulance, all I could think about was Emma, my granddaughter who I haven't seen in 2 years because I chose protecting my idea of family over protecting an actual child. The monitors beeped steadily. Outside, someone pushed a cart down the hallway, wheels squeaking against linoleum. I don't know if I'm going to be okay, my mother continued. The doctors are saying positive things, but they're also saying I need to make changes. Stress, diet, lifestyle, everything. And I realized I don't want to die having never apologized to you. Having never told Emma I was sorry for failing her. Having never admitted that you were right and I was terrified to see it. I pulled a chair closer to the bed, sat down but didn't reach for her hand. I'm listening. You were right, she said simply. Rebecca hit Emma. She was wrong to do it. And I was wrong to defend her. I was wrong to call you dramatic and selfish and all the things I called you. I was wrong to choose a wedding over a child's safety. I was wrong to make you feel like you were the problem when you were the only one telling the truth. I was wrong about all of it and I'm so sorry. The apology sat between us, imperfect and late but real. I took a breath, let it out slowly. Thank you, I said. For saying that. Can you forgive me, she asked, her voice small and hopeful. Eventually, maybe, I said honestly. But forgiveness isn't the same as reconciliation. It doesn't mean everything goes back to how it was. It can't. Too much has happened. Too much trust was broken. She nodded, accepting this. What about Emma? Would you let me see her? Even just once? I need her to know I'm sorry. I need her to know that what happened to her mattered. I thought about my daughter, happy and healing, building snowmen and learning constellations and living a life free from the anxiety of unpredictable family dynamics. Thought about the responsibility I had to protect that peace while also teaching her about grace and second chances and the complicated reality that people could be both harmful and human. I'll ask her, I said. I'll explain what happened and ask if she wants to visit. But the choice is hers. If she says no, you have to respect that. If she says yes, it's one visit and we see how it goes. And it happens on our terms when she's ready, not on any timeline that makes you comfortable. Those are my conditions. My mother nodded, crying quietly now. That's fair. That's more than fair. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you for even considering it. We talked for another 20 minutes, careful conversation about the medical situation, and what the doctors were saying and what changes she'd need to make. It felt strange, this civility after so much animosity, like learning a new language with someone who used to speak the same one fluently. When I left, I told her I'd be back tomorrow, that I'd talk to Emma tonight, that we'd figure out next steps together. In the waiting room, my father stood immediately, searching my face for clues about how it went. We talked, I said. Really talked. She apologized. His eyes filled with tears. She's been trying to work up the courage for months. I think she needed to almost lose everything to finally say what needed saying. Death has a way of clarifying things, I agreed. I'm going to go home and talk to Emma. See if she wants to visit. But Dad, this doesn't fix everything. It's a start, but just a start. I know, he said. But a start is more than we had yesterday. That evening, after dinner and homework and the usual bedtime routine, I sat on Emma's bed and told her about her grandmother. I explained the heart attack in terms a 9-year-old could understand. Explained that Grandma Patricia was sick and wanted to see her. Wanted to apologize for what had happened 2 years ago. Emma listened carefully, her face serious. Does she understand what Aunt Becca did was wrong? Yes, I said. She understands now. It took her a long time, but she understands. Is she going to be nice to me? I think so, I said. But if at any point you feel uncomfortable or scared or just want to leave, we leave. No questions asked. You're in control of this, Emma. You get to decide. Emma was quiet for a long moment, thinking. Then she said, I want to see her. But I want you to stay with me the whole time. I will, I promised. I won't leave your side. We went to the hospital the next afternoon after school. Emma held my hand tightly in the elevator, nervous but determined. I prepared her as best I could, reminded her that Grandma Patricia would look different with all the hospital equipment, that it might be a little scary but she was safe, I was there, we could leave whenever she wanted. My mother was sitting up in bed when we entered, looking more alert than yesterday, her hair brushed and her face brighter despite the circumstances. When she saw Emma, her whole expression crumpled. Emma, she whispered. Oh, sweetheart, you're so big. Look at you. Emma stayed close to me, partially hidden behind my body, peeking out at her grandmother with cautious curiosity. My mother didn't try to rush her, didn't demand a hug or make assumptions about their relationship. She just looked at her granddaughter with naked longing and regret. Hi, Emma said quietly. Hi, baby, my mother said, tears already starting. Thank you for coming to see me. I know it must feel strange. It's been a long time. Emma nodded but didn't speak. I gave her hand a reassuring squeeze. Emma, my mother continued, her voice steady despite the tears. I need to tell you something very important. 2 years ago, something bad happened at my house. Your Aunt Becca hit you. And when your mama tried to protect you, I didn't listen. I didn't believe you. I chose the wrong thing and the wrong person, and I made your mama feel like she was the problem when she was actually being the best mama in the world by keeping you safe. Emma was very still, listening intently. I was wrong, my mother said clearly. What Aunt Becca did was wrong. What I did after was wrong. You didn't deserve any of it. And I'm so sorry, Emma. I'm sorry I didn't protect you. I'm sorry I hurt your mama. I'm sorry I wasn't the grandma you deserved. I hope someday you can forgive me, but I understand if you can't. I just needed you to know that none of it was your fault. You were perfect. You are perfect. And I was wrong. The room was quiet except for the mechanical breathing of hospital equipment and the distant sounds of the hallway beyond. Emma looked up at me and I nodded, letting her know it was okay to respond however she felt. Okay, Emma said finally. Thank you for saying sorry. It wasn't effusive. It wasn't a movie moment of reconciliation and tears and immediate forgiveness. It was just a 9-year-old acknowledging an apology with the emotional honesty that children possess before adults teach them to perform feelings they don't actually have. My mother accepted it with grace. You're welcome, sweetheart. And thank you for listening. Emma moved slightly closer, still holding my hand. Are you going to be okay? From your heart attack? The doctors think so, my mother said. But I have to make some changes. Be less stressed. Focus on what really matters. Spend time with people I love instead of worrying so much about what other people think. That sounds good, Emma said seriously. Mama says stress is bad for you. Your mama is very smart, my mother said, looking at me. Always has been. We stayed for 30 minutes. Emma gradually relaxed, told her grandmother about school and her friends and the tomato plants on our balcony. My mother listened like Emma was sharing state secrets, attentive and engaged and present in a way I'd rarely seen her be. When we left, Emma let her grandmother hug her briefly, a careful embrace that held years of missed connection and the fragile hope of maybe building something new. In the car, Emma was quiet for a while. Then she said, I think Grandma really is sorry. I think so too, I agreed. Does that mean we have to see her a lot now? No, I said. It means we figure out what feels right. Maybe we visit sometimes. Maybe we do holidays differently than we used to. Maybe we build something new that works for us. But it all happens at a pace that feels safe for you. Emma nodded, satisfied with this answer. Can we get ice cream? We got ice cream. My mother was released from the hospital a week later with strict instructions about diet and exercise and stress management and regular checkups. My father reported that she'd started making changes, seeing a therapist twice a week, attending a support group for people recovering from cardiac events. She asked about Emma constantly but didn't push, respected my boundaries about contact and timing. Thanksgiving approached and for the first time in 2 years we had options. My father tentatively suggested a small gathering, just him and my mother and Rebecca's family and us if we wanted. Rebecca sent a message saying she understood if we didn't come but hoped we'd consider it, that Sophie was old enough now to meet her cousin. I talked it through with Emma, laid out the options. We could do our own thing like last year with Nina's family. We could visit for just an hour, we could commit to the whole meal, we could do something else entirely. Emma thought about it seriously, then said she'd like to try going for a little while, but wanted an escape plan if it got weird. So we went. Arrived at my parents' house in Lake Oswego on Thanksgiving afternoon with a pumpkin pie and low expectations, and the agreement that we'd stay 2 hours maximum. The house looked the same, familiar and strange at once, like returning to a childhood bedroom, and finding it both exactly as you remembered and completely different. My mother answered the door, thinner than before, moving carefully like someone still learning to trust their own body. She smiled when she saw us, genuine and uncertain and grateful. Come in, come in. We're so glad you're here. Rebecca was in the kitchen with Sophie, a chubby 1-year-old with Rebecca's eyes and Derek's chin. She looked up when we entered, her expression complex. Sarah. Emma. Hi. Hi, I said neutrally. Emma waved shyly, more interested in the baby than her aunt. The afternoon was awkward and careful and occasionally genuinely nice. We ate turkey and stuffing and multiple kinds of pie. We made small talk about safe topics. We watched Emma and Sophie play together. Emma gentle and patient with her baby cousin. Sophie delighted with this new big person who paid attention to her. My mother cried twice, both times excusing herself to the kitchen and returning with red eyes and a determined smile. My father played mediator, keeping conversation flowing, diffusing tension before it could build. Rebecca was quiet, watchful, trying too hard and knowing it. After exactly 2 hours, I caught Emma's eye and she nodded slightly. We started our goodbyes. My mother hugged us both carefully, whispered thank you in my ear. My father walked us to the door, told me he was proud of me. Rebecca waved from the living room where Sophie had fallen asleep in her arms. In the car, Emma said, "That wasn't as bad as I thought it would be." No, I agreed. It wasn't bad. Just weird. Can we do our own thing for Christmas though? Absolutely, I said. We spent Christmas morning at our apartment. Just the two of us, pajamas and pancakes and presents opened slowly, while drinking hot chocolate. In the afternoon, we went to Nina's for the Misfit Christmas that had become tradition. My father joined us this year, fitting easily into the chaos, helping with dishes and teaching the kids a card game, and looking more relaxed than I'd seen him in years. The new year arrived with less fanfare than the last one, just quiet acknowledgement that we'd made it through another orbit around the sun mostly intact. Emma turned 10 in April with a party that included friends from school and Nina's family and my father, who brought a telescope even better than the first one. My mother sent a card and a generous check with a note saying she, with motherhood and apparently still in therapy, working through her own patterns and choices. We followed each other on social media with the kind of distant politeness of people who used to be close and might someday be friendly but were currently just related by biology and shared history. Marcus proposed in June at Cannon Beach, the place we'd escaped to when everything first fell apart, now transformed into a place of healing and new beginnings. Emma helped him plan it, picked out the ring, stood witness when he asked and I said yes, tears streaming down my face not from sadness or fear, but from the overwhelming recognition that I'd built something real and good from the ruins of what I'd left behind. We set a date for the following spring, small ceremony, just the people who'd proven themselves trustworthy. Emma would stand beside me as my maid of honor. Nina would officiate. My father would walk me down the aisle. My mother had asked tentatively if she'd be invited and I'd said yes, she would, but in the congregation, not in the wedding party. Some positions had to be earned, not inherited. Life continued its forward motion, ordinary and extraordinary all at once. Emma thrived in 5th grade, discovered a love for science and poetry, and the bass guitar. I got promoted at work, finally feeling like I'd found my footing professionally after years of just getting by. Marcus moved in gradually, his presence settling into our life like it had always belonged there. Easy and natural and right. My mother and I achieved something like a relationship, monthly lunches where we talked carefully, testing the boundaries of what we could be to each other now. She'd never be the mother I'd needed as a child, but she was trying to be someone Emma could trust, and that effort mattered. Rebecca and I exchanged occasional texts, surface pleasantries mostly, both of us understanding that the sisterhood we'd had was gone but something else might eventually grow in its place, something rooted in honesty rather than obligation. It was a life rebuilt from deliberate choices, from burnt bridges and hard boundaries, and the unwavering conviction that Emma's safety mattered more than family harmony. It wasn't the life I'd imagined when I was young, dreaming of a close-knit family and Sunday dinners and sisters who were best friends. But it was honest. It was real. And it was ours. 3 years after the wedding that never was, almost to the day, I found myself sitting in a different car with Emma. No fog this time, but the same September rain drumming on the roof. We were parked outside a therapist's office, Emma's first appointment with someone who specialized in childhood trauma. She'd been doing well, had healed remarkably, but lately she'd been having nightmares again, anxiety about adult anger, hypervigilance about taking up space. I'd made the appointment immediately, understanding that healing wasn't linear, that trauma had echoes that could resurface years later. Emma was nervous, picking at her fingernails, staring at the building. "What if she asks me about Aunt Becca?" Emma said quietly. "Then you tell her the truth," I said. "Whatever truth feels right to you. You don't have to protect anyone's feelings in there. That's what therapy is for, being honest about the hard stuff. Will you come in with me?" "For the first session, yes," I said. "After that, we'll see what you need." Emma nodded, took a breath, reached for the door handle. Before she opened it, she turned back to me. "Mama," she said, "thank you for believing me. When I told you what happened, a lot of kids' parents don't believe them." I felt my throat tighten. "I will always believe you, Emma. Always. That's my job as your mom. To believe you and protect you and make sure you know you matter more than anything else." She smiled, small but real, then opened the door and stepped out into the rain. I followed, holding an umbrella over both of us, walking beside my daughter into a building where she'd learned to process trauma and build resilience and understand that what happened to her wasn't her fault. Watching her walk into that office, brave and scared and willing to do the hard work of healing, I felt a surge of pride so intense it was almost painful. This child, my child, who'd whispered she hit me in a foggy car and changed the trajectory of our entire lives, was going to be okay. Better than okay. She was going to be strong and honest and unafraid to take up space. And if I'd had to burn every bridge and cancel every wedding and lose every family member to give her that, it was the easiest choice I'd ever made. Later that evening, after Emma's session where she'd been brave and open and the therapist had praised her emotional intelligence, after we'd gotten her favorite Thai food and eaten it curled up on the couch watching nature documentaries, after I'd tucked her into bed and kissed her forehead and told her I loved her more than all the stars, I sat alone in my living room and thought about the past 3 years. Thought about fog and rain and whispered confessions. Thought about family gatherings I'd never attend and relationships that had ended and the peculiar grief of losing people who were still alive. Thought about boundaries and consequences and the weight of choosing truth over comfort. Thought about my daughter, asleep down the hall, safe and healing and learning that her voice mattered. My phone buzzed. A text from my mother. "Just wanted to say good night and that I'm thinking of you both. Hope Emma's first appointment went well. Love you." I typed back, "Thank you. She did great. Love you too." It was true in its way. I did love her, this imperfect woman who'd failed me and was trying to do better. Love was complicated like that, capable of existing alongside disappointment and anger and boundaries that would never fully dissolve. Another text, this time from Marcus. "Coming home from rehearsal. Want me to bring anything? Ice cream? Wine? Both?" I smiled. "Both sounds perfect. See you soon." My life had become this strange, beautiful thing built from the pieces of what I'd thought I needed and discovered I could live without. Built from chosen family and second chances, and the radical act of prioritizing a child's safety over adult comfort. Built from burnt bridges and new beginnings and the understanding that sometimes the kindest thing you can do is refuse to pretend everything is fine. The rain continued outside. That endless Portland rain that had been the soundtrack to both my worst moments and my healing. I listened to it and thought about Emma in that car 3 years ago, small fingers tracing circles on foggy glass, building up the courage to say 3 words that would require me to choose between being comfortable and being her mother. She'd chosen honesty. I'd chosen her. And everything that came after, the canceled weddings and broken relationships and painful reconstructions, had been worth it for the simple fact that my daughter knew beyond any doubt that she mattered, that her truth mattered, that she would always be chosen first. The front door opened. Marcus came in with grocery bags, dripping rain, smiling when he saw me. "Got the good ice cream," he announced. "And the expensive wine. Figured we were celebrating Emma being brave today." "We are," I said, standing to help him. "We definitely are. We made sundaes with too many toppings and drank wine that was probably too nice for a random Thursday and talked about nothing important and everything that mattered." Later, much later, I checked on Emma one more time before bed, found her sleeping peacefully, her stuffed dragon tucked under one arm. I stood in her doorway like I had 1,000 times before, watching her breathe, and whispered into the darkness, "I'd do it all again. Every single choice. Every burnt bridge. Every hard conversation. I'd do it all again for you." She didn't hear me. She didn't need to. The words were for me. A reminder and a promise and a truth I'd carry forward into whatever came next. Some stories don't end with reconciliation or fairy tale endings, or everyone learning their lesson and living happily ever after. Some stories end with a mother and daughter building a life from honest pieces, with boundaries that protect instead of punish, with love that chooses safety over tradition. This was our story. Imperfect, incomplete, still being written with every choice we made. But it was ours, built on truth instead of appearance, on protection instead of peacekeeping, on the radical notion that a child's well-being matters more than an adult's comfort. And that, I thought as I turned off Emma's light and headed to my own room, was the only ending that mattered. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.